My story begins 4.6 million years ago when ivory became a heartbreaking weapon for survival. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick with tension, the ground trembling under the weight of unspoken fears. I remember the smell of sweat and the metallic taste of adrenaline in my mouth. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown to something terrible. I stood there with trembling hands, clutching a piece of aged ivory, the remnants of a life once thriving. The sun cast a harsh light, illuminating scars that ran deeper than the surface. It wasn't just ivory. It was hope. It was the tool that once allowed us to carve our existence, offer comfort, and connect. But now, it was a symbol of loss. My mother, a wild spirit, once turned that ivory into beautiful carvings, bringing joy to our small village. Her laughter filled the air like music, but that sound had died, lost to the greed that slaughtered the world around us. We were left isolated, a patchwork of sorrow sewn together by memories. My father, a man of strength, now wore the weight of despair like a shroud, his eyes hollow, haunted by decisions he never wanted to make. That I could hear whispers around me. People huddled together, faces drawn tight, fear etching lines into their foreheads. A child cried in the distance, the sound piercing through the silence like a knife. I wish they would all forget. But none of us could escape the reality, the grip that ivory held over our lives. It was used as currency for survival, but stained with blood. That vibrant world was crumbling, replaced by shadows, darkness creeping in like smoke. Each step out of our door felt like navigating a haunted graveyard. Tragedy was everywhere. We sacrificed our souls for one more day of safety. I could sense the angry murmurs of villagers, the undercurrent of discontent. We were trapped between the desire to hold on and the desperate need to break free. But then there's always that flicker of hope. A boy named Jalen, with a glimmer in his eye, dared to dream. He spoke of a life beyond ivory, beyond the chains of our past. We have to reclaim what is ours, he shouted, and the fire in his words crackled to life, echoing in my chest. The moment hung heavy in the air, charged with possibility. Will we dare? As uncertainty wrapped around us like a vice, I could feel the world shift. What if there were a way? A chance to reclaim our past without the loss, without the bloody history of ivory? The thought sent shivers down my spine, leaving something bittersweet lingering in my throat. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days blurred together as we stood on the precipice of that fateful decision. Each dawn felt heavy, but the weight of the past clung tighter with every passing night. I could see the toll it was taking on my father, his silhouette more frail each day, as if the hope Jalen ignited was dimming in his eyes. Instead of the grateful laughter that once echoed through our home, a suffocating silence filled the spaces where joy had thrived. With every gathering in the village square, conversations turned darker. Fingers pointed, blame shifted, and resentment simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over. It was a delicate balance, each soul dancing on the edge of despair. Yet Jalen's audacity stirred something in all of us. To reclaim what is ours, he insisted, means we must redefine our future. I watched as villagers leaned in, their eyes reflecting a kaleidoscope of hope and doubt. Some were hungry for change. Others held tightly to the crumbling remnants of the past. I knew we were at a crossroads, teetering on the brink of upheaval, and the choice we made could ripple through our bones for generations. In those quiet moments of reflection, I often found myself retreating to the place where my mother had crafted her art. A small glade by the river became my sanctuary. The whispers of the wind brushed through the trees. The murmurs of the water felt like soft promises, and in that serenity, I could almost see her smile. I closed my eyes, willing her spirit to guide me, as I held the ivory piece tightly against my heart point one afternoon, as I carved absent-mindedly at a piece of fallen wood. The noise of the village mingled with the calls of birds overhead. Suddenly, a familiar voice broke through the din. It was Jalen, his face flushed with excitement. "Come quickly, there's something you need to see." His energy was infectious, and as I followed him, my pulse quickened with anticipation. We arrived at a gathering of villagers, their faces lit with a mix of fear and wonder. In the center, a makeshift table held an eclectic collection of artifacts, items that had once belonged to our ancestors, but had long been forgotten. Jalen's eyes shone as he spoke. "These are the remnants of our history, and we must remember who we are beyond the ivory." One by one, they approached, each sharing stories tied to the various objects, tiny figures carved from stone that mirrored our ancestors, a tattered book filled with ancient wisdom, fragments of pottery that told tales of laughter and abundance. With each reflection, I felt a stirring within me, a yearning to reclaim a part of our identity stripped away by greed and suffering. Despite the hope blossoming among us, there were still shadows lurking. A faction within the village had begun to voice concerns about Jalen's fervor. During one gathering, they accused him of stirring dissent, of leading us toward ruin rather than healing. I felt the air shift, that fragile spark of hope flickering with uncertainty. Change is a risk, but doing nothing is a danger far greater, Jalen implored, his voice ringing out, shaking with equal parts fear and conviction. But the words found mixed reception, and I could see tensions escalating. The villagers split between those clinging to the past and those daring to dream. As night fell, I stood alone, looking out toward the distant mountains silhouetted against the sunset. The world was quiet for a brief moment, the weight of impending conflict muffled by the intoxicating scent of blooming wildflowers. Yet, the unease gnawed at my insides. I could sense a storm brewing. Then, I noticed movement at the edge of the glade. A figure emerged from the shadows, a face I recognized all too well. It was my mother's sister, Aunt Mira, trembling and pale. Her arrival sent ripples of concern through me. "You need to listen to me," she gasped, her breath catching in her throat. "There are things you don't know. Things about the past that will change everything." The warmth of the twilight turned cold, and with it, my heart sank. What could she possibly know that might alter our fragile trajectory? I stepped toward her, and just as I opened my mouth to ask the questions swirling in my mind, another sound broke the silence, the unmistakable crack of a branch snapping behind me. I turned sharply, my heart racing, just in time to see a shadow diffuse into the gathering twilight. An unknown presence lingered nearby, a silent observer to our moment of revelation. The mystery of it all sent a shiver down my spine. What hidden truths awaited us? This was just the beginning, and it felt as though the very air we breathed was charged with the weight of all we had lost and all we were still to discover. "Stay close," I whispered to Aunt Mira, my voice trembling as dread pooled in the pit of my stomach. The path ahead opened like a chasm, dark and yet filled with an unsettling promise. The journey to reclaim our lives and perhaps our souls was just starting, and I could only hope that it wouldn't lead us further down toward the edge of despair. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a deep orange glow across the trees, the tension in the air thickened. I could feel Aunt Mira's anxiety radiating off her in waves. "We must talk, and quickly," she urged, her voice hushed but insistent. The events of the past few weeks had left her visibly shaken, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever she held back could shatter the fragile hope we clung to. I guided her deeper into the glade, far from prying eyes. The sound of rushing water turned into a murmuring backdrop, soothing yet reminders of our turmoil. "What do you know?" I asked urgently, my heart thudding loudly in anticipation. Aunt Mira glanced around, as though the very trees had ears. "There are whispers of a prophecy," she began, her voice trembling. "It speaks of a heart that is broken, yet powerful enough to heal the fractures within our village. But it comes with conditions. The path to healing requires great sacrifices that could tear families apart." The weight of her words hung in the air like a fog. I swallowed hard, trying to process the enormity of it all. A prophecy? What could it mean for Jalen's vision? What could it mean for us? My thoughts raced. Would it take my father away from me? Or perhaps even challenge Jalen's leadership? A distant rustling brought us both back to the reality surrounding us, and I could see Aunt Myra's gaze darting toward the edge of the glade. I knew I couldn't let fear take hold. "What else?" I prompted softly. "We need to know everything." She hesitated, wrestling with her emotions, the lines on her face deepening with worry. "It said that the heart connected to the prophecy is uniquia relic that has been hidden for generations. It possesses the power to shift our fate, but in searching for it, we may awaken something darker." "What do you mean?" I pressed, the chill of foreboding crawling up my spine. "Ancient spirits have guarded this heart, and they won't allow just anyone to reclaim it. The past is a powerful force, and it's restless." Before I could respond, the crack of a twig echoed again from behind us, more pronounced this time. Instinctively, I turned, dread creeping in. The shadowy figure I saw earlier now loomed closer, revealing itself as a face I recognized: Kyle's, a prominent leader of the opposing faction within the village. His expression was unreadable. "Aunt Mira, go," I urged, but she held her ground, her eyes darting between us. "What do you want, Kyles?" I demanded, masking the tremor in my voice. "I want to understand," he replied, his tone still laced with skepticism. "What are you two whispering about? More plots against the village?" Aunt Mira squared her shoulders. "We're discussing the future of our people, something that concerns us all. You should hear us out." Kyle snorted. "I don't have to listen to your crazy prophecies. It's idealism that drives our people to despair, not hope." In that moment, I felt a pang of empathy for him amidst my anger. He carried burdens of his own, fears bubbling just beneath his hardened surface. Something deeper urged me to bridge the divide. "Kyles, what if what Aunt Mira says is true? What if we must confront the past together?" His eyes flickered with doubt. "And what if it leads us to ruin? The past has no kindness for those who wander its shadows." "You're right," I acknowledge, "but it has lessons too. If things are ever going to change, we might need to start listening even to the things we fear." As I spoke, an unexpected breeze spiraled through the glade, brushing against us like a whispered encouragement. I thought I saw a flicker of something warm in Kyle's gaze before it dimmed again in skepticism. He stepped back suspiciously. "This doesn't concern me. I'll gather support from those who still believe in tradition." With that, he turned abruptly and vanished into the darkening woods, leaving us in uneasy silence. "Do you see what he represents?" Aunt Mira said, her voice filled with urgency. "Fear clouds judgment, and uncertainty breeds conflict." My head spun with questions as the sun finally slipped below the horizon, shattering. The last light with shadows and dread began to gnaw at me. What if we can't fix this? What if the heart reveals something we're not prepared to face? Aunt Mira placed her hand on my arm, grounding me in the moment. "Then we will face it together. You must be ready for this journey, no matter what truths we unearth." As the darkness enveloped us, I felt the warmth of her touch, a small flicker of hope igniting in the haunting twilight. Yet, uncertainty lingered, and the gravity of our next steps weighed heavily as we both stood on the precipice questioning everything. Then, as if the woods themselves were conspiring against us, we heard a rustling nearby, louder and more insistent. My heart stuttered as from behind a large spruce, another figure emerged, one dressed in tattered cloth and wearing a hood that obscured their face. They were a stranger, but the gleam of an ornate pendant around their necks sparked an instantaneous recognition, a symbol long lost to our family. Before I could call out or react, they met my gaze, their eyes glimmering in the fading light, and spoke words that twisted through my heart like a dagger. The heart's calling has begun. Are you prepared to seek it, even if it brings you to your knees? The air grew heavier, embracing us in ancient secrets and a promise of uncharted peril. I didn't answer. My heart pounded too fiercely, drowning out my thoughts while the unknown loomed closer than ever. The true journey, it seemed, was only just beginning. The figure stood before us, their voice resonating with an eerie familiarity that sent a chill down my spine. I wanted to step back, to retreat into the safety of the familiar, but the words they'd spoken clung to the air around us, heavy with implications. "Who are you?" I managed to stammer, my voice unsteady. A surge of defiance flickered within me, mingling with an urge to shield Aunt Mira from whatever this stranger represented. The figure tilted their head, allowing the hood to slip slightly, revealing a cascade of dark curls and a pair of deep, knowing eyes. "I am a keeper of the truths buried in our Historia history of sacrifice, loss, and the relentless pursuit of hope." Aunt Mira stepped forward, her voice steadier than mine. "Why are you here? What do you want with us?" "I am here to guide you," they replied, the sincerity in their voice cracking through the shadows that loomed over our gathering. "It is not merely a relic that you seek, but the strength to confront the darkness that lies both outside and within." As they spoke, I felt an unquenchable fire ignite in my chest, wrestling with the ever-looming fear that threatened to consume our fragile resolve. "And how do we prepare for that?" I demanded. "What's the first step?" "The heart calls for unity," the keeper replied. "You must seek those who are willing to confront their fears with you. Your journey is not meant to be walked alone." "Unity," Aunt Mira echoed, her brow furrowing in thought. "But after everything, the division, the conflicto, you truly believe that is possible?" "It must begin with understanding and acceptance," the keeper said, their voice unwavering. "Every heart bears wounds from the past. It is time to let go of grievance, to forgive, to heal. That is the essence of the heart that I long to believe their promise of healing. But skepticism tugged at my thoughts, knotting my stomach with fear. Kyle's voice echoed in my mind. "The past has no kindness for those who wander its shadows." The words felt like an anchor, pulling me away from hope. What if that's all we are? Just shadows of what's gone? The keeper's gaze remained steady, and I found an unexpected solace there. "Your past does not define you. It is the choices you make moving forward that will shape your future." Aunt Mira gripped my arm, squeezing gently, as if to remind me of her unwavering support. "We must do this, dear one, for our village and for those who have suffered. If there's a chance to heal what was broken, we cannot shy away from that responsibility." But as I looked into the depths of the keeper's eyes, uncertainty lingered like a persistently dark cloud. "And if the journey unearths more pain rather than healing?" I asked, forcing the words out through a tight throat. "What if we can't bear what we discover?" The keeper's response was calm, an ocean of stillness amidst the storm. "Every story holds the power to awaken, to remind us of what we've overcome. Through pain, we can learn to empathize, to connect deeply with each other. That is true strength." As they spoke, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye, drawing my gaze away from the stranger. Just beyond the edge of the glade, voices began to rise, muffled, hushed, whispers morphing into palpable laughter. A group from our village was approaching, their voices carrying a mix of joy and uncertainty. The keeper perceived my distraction and took a step back, disappearing momentarily behind the shadows of the trees. "Follow the laughter, and you may find the first step to unity," they said softly before fading from sight entirely. The wind shifted as I turned back to my aunt, buoyed by a surge of urgency. "We can't just stand here. If they've gathered, it means they're ready to hear us. They need to understand what's at stake." Yet doubt lingered in my heart. Were we ready to bear the burden of both our history and our future? Would they listen? Would they understand? As we neared the laughter, I felt the weight of the prophecy pressing heavily against my chest, tugging at me from all sides. Had Kyle's doubts been justified, or could we weave a path through our fragmented past into a shared tomorrow? The moon, now full and radiant, unveiled the scene before us, a circle of faces reflecting light and shadows, laughter tempered with anxious glances. And at the center of it all stood Jalen, vibrant but visibly strained, his expression shifting as he caught sight of us. "Where have you been?" he called out, concern etching lines of worry across his brow. "We need everyone here. It's about to begin." The air trembled with immediate tension as my eyes darted across the faces, searching for Kyle's among them. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, the warmth of hope wrestling against the cold sting of apprehension. "We've found something," I managed, my voice filling the void between us. "A path forward if you're willing to take it." But just as I felt a flicker of possibility ignite between us, I spotted a familiar pendant being worn by one of the strangers, mingling with our villagers, a glimmer that echoed the pendant of the keeper. It sent tempestuous ripples of recognition crashing over me. With dread seeping into my bones, I glanced toward Aunt Mira, who, too, had recognized the symbol. There was an undeniable connect-iona thread woven through time that was fraying at the edges. Embattled by realization, and caught between futures yet to be defined, I wondered if the heart's call might lead us spiraling into something far more profound than mere conflict or resolution. The world around us felt suspended in time, with breaths held tight in anticipation, as shadows whispered their secrets beneath the blanket of night, an intricate dance of hope that would bring us closer to the heart of it all, or tear us apart forever. The laughter faded as I took a step closer to the circle, a strange blend of comfort and unease blossoming within me. Jalen looked back at me, his eyes trying to gauge my mood, to measure the weight of what I was about to say. The energy around us shifted, a delicate scale poised on the brink of something transformative or destructive. "Everyone here needs to know what's at stake," I insisted, even as my voice trembled with uncertainty. Aunt Mira stood tall beside me, exuding the strength I wished I felt. "What have you discovered?" Jalen asked, urgency threaded into his tone. He took a half-step closer, the tension in his posture suggesting he worried that an answer could unravel everything we had built together in our hesitant attempts toward unity. "They should hear about the Keeper," I replied, unsure how my words would be received. "We encountered someone who told us about healing and forgiveness, about confronting our shared history." A whisper of skepticism flickered among the group, and I sensed their hesitance. The last meeting we'd held had been draped in mistrust, each person carrying their burdens and grievances like armor. I could feel Kyle's frown without seeing him, a shadow of disapproval threatening to dim the fragile hope in the air. Before I could continue, an elder from the village, Mara, spoke up. "And what good will it do us to dig into the past again? Every time we try, our wounds only festered." I glanced at Jalen, who nodded slightly, as if urging me not to shy away from sharing our truth. "Because there's a chance," I replied, rallying my courage, "to discover what binds us more than what tears us apart. The Keeper, they believe our strength lies in understanding and unity." While her wrinkled face remained skeptical, Mara softened at my words. I understood her fears. The scars of our past ran deep. "You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. Then help us acknowledge it," Aunt Mira urged, a slight tremor in her voice, but firm in her conviction. "We cannot ignore that darkness forever. It will consume us. But if we're willing to face it together, perhaps we can reclaim parts of ourselves that have been lost in sorrow," that a flicker of curiosity sparked among the villagers. They exchanged glances, some tapping into a sense of cautious hope, while others clung tightly to skepticism. "If we are to unite, we need a symbol," Jalen suggested, rhythmic and steady. "A way to signify our commitment to this journey." "Then what should it be?" someone called from the crowd, drawing every eye into a shared moment of contemplation. "Maybe it's not a physical object," I interjected, spurred on by a flicker of insight. The past echoed within me like an ancient song. "Perhaps we should share our stories instead. Each of us can reveal our struggles, the pain we've carried. Only through the truth can we find a way forward." Murmurings took root among my villagers. I recognized an ember of hope gathering strength. But Kyle's shadow loomed larger in my mind, a voice of reason tempered with doubt. Stories are not easy to share, he whispered back to me in my thoughts. What if those stories lead to further division? What if some are too painful, too raw? But it might also bring understanding, I countered internally, biting my lip to remain composed. We can't predict the outcome, but running from it has only brought us misery. The stories can flow freely, Jalen proclaimed, and the warmth of acceptance floated through the gathering. No judgment, just shared truths that I took a deep breath, feeling the ground shift beneath us as the people began to take turns, voices rising with raw emotion. One by one, they spoke. A father shared the grief of losing a child. A mother recounted the tale of betrayal, and an elder recalled historical injustices that echoed through generations. As their words wove together, an unseen thread pulled tighter, drawing us closer in ways I never thought possible. Still, lingering doubt churned within me. The vision of Kyle's casting a prolonged shadow over the warmth of unity blooming before our eyes. What if these stories unearth more? Pain and promise? What if we were simply lining the path to an even darker history? As the sun dipped beyond the horizon, the atmosphere thickened with emotion. Hope mingled tantalizingly with fear, as the laughter had done before. The air vibrated with truth, yet here I stood on a precipice, a heart laden with unknown expectations, wondering if this newfound connection would fracture when faced with what we might ultimately uncover. Then, amidst the catharsis, something caught my eye, a glint like the pendant, but sharper, ominous, lurking in the shadows. I squinted to see, my breath hitching. From beneath the trees, a pair of eyes reflected the final rays of dying light. The realization hit me like a storm. Was it the keeper of truths watching us? Emotion grabbed a hold of my heart, tightening its grip as I lost sight of the gentle acceptance around me. Was there something more sinister waiting to be unveiled in this very moment? The discovery of hidden pain could lead to healing or unleash the ghosts of the past once more. I projected my gaze, feeling the shift of the world around me. I aged in mere seconds from innocence to the burden of knowledge, and it stirred a singular truth within me. Perhaps it is not just history that shapes our destiny, but the courage we muster to confront it. With trembling hands, I stepped back into the circle, ready to share my own story, when suddenly, a voice cut through the gathering. You should all know, the Keeper isn't the only one with a connection to our past. The whisper rippled through the circle like a pebble tossed into still water, sending shivers down spines and drawing every gaze toward the silhouette that now stepped from the shadows. It was Lyra, a woman I had known since childhood. Her skin was spattered with the remnants of battles, both physical and emotional, and at that moment, she seemed to embody both trepidation and resolve. The flickering torches cast a warm glow, illuminating her features as she found her way to the center. "What do you mean, Lyra?" Jalen asked, the urgency in his voice slicing through the tension that had momentarily thickened the air. She took a steadying breath, and I could see the storm of memories warping her expression. "The Keeper may have shown you a glimpse into our past, but others have insights that can shake the very foundation of what we thought we knew." The murmurs evolved into a cacophony of concern. Mara's hands trembled at her sides, and I could feel the weight of unshed tears in the atmosphere. Kyle stood idly, his brows knitted together, skepticism flashing across his face. "Lyra, it's not the time for old tales," Kyle snapped, bitterness lacing his tone. "We're trying to build, not destroy what little unity we have left." She squared her shoulders, unyielding. "And yet it's the past that will determine our future if we refuse to confront it head-on." Her voice softened as she continued, a tremor of vulnerability seeping through. "There are secrets we carried, things that bind us in ways we never fully understood. This circle, this gathering, it's pulling at threads that could unravel the entire tapestry, and perhaps that's exactly what we need." Those words struck a chord, echoing the turmoil I felt within. My mind flashed to the stories being shared, raw confessions that laid bare the wounds we all carried. Perhaps we were on the right path. Yet what if Lyra's revelations were an earthquake waiting to shatter our newfound cohesion? Speak, then Jalen urged gently, his hand resting on her shoulder, grounding her in this moment of vulnerability. Let us hear what you believe we need to confront. Lyra met his gaze and took a deep breath. My story, it begins when I was just a child, growing up in a household where silence was the norm. My mother held the weight of unspoken grief, her own survival a reminder of our past. We were running from ghosts. She paused, her eyes glossing over. Ghosts I couldn't recognize then, but they were tied to a family lost to conflict. Ivory was a name often whispered among us, a symbol of both love and betrayal. Gasps echoed, and I shivered, feeling the threads of fate twist tighter around us. Ivory, I murmured, scarcely able to connect the dots. The name of the past? Yes, she nodded, voice trembling. The ivory that was stripped from nature became a Tula weapon. It was used in the devastation of families, including my own. My grandmother, a keeper of stories, was a victim, betrayed by those she trusted. This cycle continues. We consume each other through secrecy and buried pain. Esser words unfurled. The atmosphere began to shift. Eager faces turned serious, and it felt as though the very essence of our gathering hung at the precipice of revelation. But why didn't anyone speak before? Kyle's challenged, his tone a clash of defensiveness and incredulity. Why now? Because fear has shackled us, she replied, regard unwavering. And with the Keeper's arrival, perhaps it's time to unearth these bindings. Our experiences can lead to healing rather than harm. What we've ignored for too long is rising, waiting for us to confront it. The whispers of those gone linger still, urging us to reclaim what's been lost. With each word she offered, the crowd leaned closer, suspended between hope and trepidation. They, too, were merely beings anchored by histories both spoken and unspoken. I felt a surge of emotion wash over us. An unbreakable connection was forming, but uncertainty gnawed at the edges of my mind. What more had been hidden? What more pain would this unleashed story stir? Before I could seize the opportunity to add my voice, I sensed a movement at the fringes of our gathering. A figure, spiraled in mystery, stepped into the light. A young boy with remnants of dirt streaked across his face. His eyes were wide, innocent yet burdened, locking onto Lyra with a peculiar intensity. We've all been affected. He startled us, his soft voice catching the wind. I've seen things seen the Keeper. The Keeper carries a different story, one that could destroy everything or save us. But there are others, too. The ones who want to keep us in the dark. Gasps rippled through the crowd again, and the air trembled with anticipation. The boy looked around at us, in desperate need for urgency. What do you know? I questioned, suddenly leaning toward this small harbinger of revelation. He licked his lips, crestfallen yet determined. The Keeper is not just a visitor. There are those from your past who do not wish to be uncovered. They want to preserve their version of history. If we dig too deep, they might awaken, and if they do, everything we've built could be shattered all over again. An ominous chill danced throughout the gathering, crystallizing my deepest fear. Unearthing truth could lead to catastrophic ruin. As the last rays of light faded into the horizon, plunging us into dusk, my breath hitched within me. Each second dripped heavier with implications. We were intertwined in a web of our own making, caught between voices from the past and an uncertain future. I exchanged a glance with Jalen, who met my gaze, offering silent reassurance. The path diverged, our collective steps poised upon unknown ground. The intensity of our journey was far from over. As Lyra stood resolute, I felt the flicker of rebellion rise within me. I was determined to confront whatever truths lay hidden. Were we willing to risk? I asked, my voice steady despite the tempest within. But before anyone could respond, another shadow emerged from the trees, piercing the growing tension like a winter's chill. You should prepare yourself, the new stranger warned, tone dark and foreboding. For the Keeper may not be the ally you seek. A collective intake of breath echoed, and I realized the path ahead was more treacherous and tangled than any of us had dared to imagine. The air shimmered with seismic tension as the last words echoed, the weight of their implication pressing heavily on each of us gathered in that sacred circle. My heart pounded as shadows danced in the flickering torchlight, each flicker underscoring my unease. I looked across at Lyra, her features etched with determination and fear. She had faced the demons of her past, and yet here we were, being told that the Keepera figure I had hoped would unify us might not be the ally we needed. Confusion settled over the group like a shroud. What could this new arrival reveal? And who were the others that sought to keep us entwined in darkness? Jalen stepped forward, drawing out a breath that seemed to echo through the silence. If the Keeper isn't what we believe them to be, then what can we trust? His voice carried authority, urging each of us to reckon with our own anxieties. The boy, still swaying with the remnants of childhood innocence, gazed back with an intensity that belied his years. There's stories that need to be told. I overheard the grown-ups. They fear what will happen if the truth surfaces, if we uncover what's been buried beneath layers of grief and blame. The Keeper is more than a witness. They could bring both salvation and destruction. Lyra's brow furrowed, her composure unshaken as she took in the boy's words. Then we must dig deeper. We cannot shy away from our past just because it frightens us. It is that very fear that has shackled us for too long. The collective anxiety of our group was palpable. Kyle shifted, seemingly caught between skepticism and a hesitant newfound respect for Lyra's resolve. And we're to trust a child's fear and the words of a stranger? This could lead us down a path wrapped in treachery. The fears are ours to share, Kyle's. I piped up, my voice surprising even myself. This isn't just about trusting anyone. It's about learning to trust each other. Our stories must connect. If we let doubt fester, we'll forever remain prisoners of our past. Kyle stared at me, silent. I could feel the eyes of the group upon us, waiting for a sign, any sign, that could assure them we weren't tumbling toward oblivion. Instead, a resonantia moment of unity whispered through our hearts. Then let mine be the first, I declared, stepping into the circle. I have carried the burden of our shared suffering long enough. My family, too, stood at the edge of these shadows you speak of. I'm tired of being bound to what has been done and left unsaid. It has shaped who I am, but it shall not determine who we become. The air shifted, expansive and electric, urging others to step forward. Mara lifted her heavy gaze, tears glistening. I've also seen pain. I thought I was alone, but am not. My mother kept me sheltered from these truths. She had her own trauma secrets that nearly destroyed her. I want to break the cycle. I want to find our strength together. As each story began to unfurl, the torches flickered with life, illuminating our shared struggles and sorrows. Kyle's, tentative at first, stepped forward as well, easing into the vulnerable embrace of honesty. I lost my brother to the wrong kind of truths, and I feared sharing my grief, worried it would highlight my own failures. But perhaps that fear can be transformed. Hope flickered in the trepidation that veiled us, like fragile petals emergent through a winter's frost. We were beginning to weave a tapestry of healing rather than one of despair. The boy's hopeful gaze rallied us further, pulling us closer together. Yet, just as the warmth in the circle ignited, abrupt discord throbbed in the peripheria rustle in the dense thicket where shadows seemed to pulse with a life of their own. A low growl emanated from the darkness, pulling the attention of each soul present. "Stay back," the boy commanded, a sense of urgency slicing through the fragile intimacy we'd begun to forge. "They're coming to..." My heart raced as unseen horrors stirred beyond the trees. Kyle's took a protective stance, his bravado returning, though I saw the fear hidden in his eyes. The moment stretched long, tender truths, diminishing in the face of impending chaos. And then a roar erupted, reverberating through the night, a sound that felt alien yet frighteningly familiar. A figure broke through the thicket, illuminated partially by the waning light. It was terror taking form, familiar, yet grotesque. The keeper. But this time, the figure was not alone. Shadows swarmed around them, elastic and dark, moving as if breathing with intent. You should have kept silent. The keeper's voice resonated, sharp and commanding. You delve where you do not belong. That a chill woven with the scent of old regrets gripped me. Were they truly the vessel of truth we had sought, or had darkness disguised itself in shades of familiarity? In that moment of disbelief, a familiar face stood beside the keeper, a woman whose porphyry eyes reflected extinguished warmth. It was Lyra's grandmother, or what remained of Hera, beacon of the past, risen to lay claim on our future. Get back, I shouted, the words stumbling over themselves in my fear. Before I could latch onto anything more, I felt my knees weaken and the circle erupted into confusion, chaos rippling through the group, much like the disturbances I had once felt surfacing. What threads of fate were they seeking to unravel? Would they shatter the fragile unity we had begun to form? The walls were closing in, the weight of the past threatening to crush us under secrets never meant to be unearthed. The clash of realization and hope echoed in the voided challenge as dangerous as it was essential. As the figures loomed closer, teeth bared and eyes blazing, the glow of our once steadfast circle dimmed. A primal instinct pulsed within me. Why are they here? I shouted, desperation coloring my voice as I clutched my heart. We all awaited the sworn answers from the keeper and whatever darkness followed in their wake. The answer lurked somewhere behind the eyes of those ancient reflections. I braced myself, heart racing for answers that could either break our bonds further or cradle the remnant hope within. I had touched the precipice of our interconnected destinies, and yet the true reckoning had only just begun. The air thrummed with tension as our ragged breaths mingled with the malice that lingered just outside the flickering half-light. The figures that illuminated our gathering manifested shadows of our deepest fears. The keepers stood resolute, their presence entwined with Lyra's grandmother, a phantom from the past that held more than just familiarity. It held a promise of painful revelations. Stay close. Kyle's called, instinctively rallying us together. The bonds of unity we had begun to weave just moments before felt fragile, but the call to preserve them surged like a foreign strength. What do you want from us? I demanded, steeling myself against the encroaching darkness. My voice bore a tremor, choosing defiance despite the uncertainty clawing at my heart. The keeper regarded me with eyes that danced between sorrow and resolve. You unearth shadows, and in doing so, you must know they may consume you. The truths buried deep do not only reside in your hearts. They're interlaced with the fabric of your very existence. Lyra's grandmother stepped forward, an ethereal grace to her steps, yet the quiet determination I had known in her youth felt different now, heavier. Every thread in your tapestry is bound by the choices we made and the sacrifices we endured. We are not merely figures lost in time. We've carried our burdens to this very moment. The shadows stirred again, teeth flashing like ancient daggers silhouetted against the backdrop of the gathering dark. I felt my heart racing, each pulse echoing the stories unspoken amongst us. Your stories are not finished, the keeper intoned, their voice carrying the weight of something primal. But to forge ahead, you must contend with the price of illumination. Shadows thrive on the secrets you've hidden behind bravado and silence. I felt the chill creep back, curling around me like a serpent. What price? I whispered hoarsely, fear wrapping you tightly around my throat. The price of revealing who you truly are, the keeper stated, and their voice began to dissolve into the night. It unearths the past in a way you may not expect. Some secrets must be shared, yet the scars they leave may change you irrevocably. There's a reason our histories were under lock and key. A fleeting glimpse of commingling memories flickered before my eyes, whispers of laughter, echoes of a child's joy now entwined with the grief we carried like festering wounds. Lyra gripped my hand tightly, grounding me as the pull of those revelations beckoned to drag me into the depths of lost time. Are you disclaiming your agency over your own story? She spoke sharply, her voice wavering yet laced with unfathomable courage. If we're meant to unlock this darkness, then let it come. We must face our truths with fierceness who may be afraid, but we will not be silenced. The air shifted, tension coiling and uncoiling, the shadows rippling like currents within the circle. The boy stepped forward, face resolute though the edges of fear threatened to fracture his expression. They can't control you unless you let them. The strength lies within the truth of your stories, but you must choose to tell them, however painful. The keeper nodded, a gesture almost mournful. What path you walk tonight lies in your own hands. If you wish to uncover the forbidden layers that bind you, you must be prepared to witness what lies behind. Every truth unearths more shadows, and they could reveal enemies lurking where you least expect. A new wave of uncertainty crashed upon us, every word drawing forth our shared memories, bringing shadows to life. A primal fight coiled in my gut, mingled with the toxic fear of what truths would erupt if we dared to walk that line. Then let us speak, Mara shouted, voice breaking like dawn through the night's fabric. Let us crack open the vault and face what we hold within. I felt a resonant pulse ripple through our circle, the united heartbeat of souls who dared to traverse the unknown. Once in the grip of shame, it became a roar of defiance against the might of the encroaching darkness. Yet just as courage surged, a guttural growl rumbled once again, an ethereal warning that the shadows were restless. I noticed the boy's eyes narrowing, a flicker of something dark swirling within. This isn't about truth anymore, he murmured, almost to himself. It's about survival. The keeper and Lyra's grandmother flickered, their forms momentarily swaying with unearthly energy. You have but moments to blend your stories. Will you light the way forward, or will the darkness envelop you? The keeper's voice trembled in harmony with the shadows, a beat that pulled tighter around our collective heart. Then, the boy screamed as darkness surged around us, encompassing the circle. I stood frozen, feeling every moment stretch was our yearning for unity, just a facade cracking under the weight of our own fears. The shadows coiled forward, grasping at our hands, reaching for the soul within each heart. As horror surged within me, a single word escaped my lips, both a declaration and a plea. Together. But the shadows enveloped us, an insatiable tide, and I felt the light dimming. From the periphery, lingering figures emerged, stepping out of a long-forgotten past, threatening not only our truths, but the semblance of safety we had begun to craft. The revealed histories stretched before us like a chasm, waiting to swallow us whole, and the darkness hungered for our stories, our very depths. And then, just like that, the grip tightened, and a chill washed over me as Lyra's hand slipped from mine, the shadows claiming the moment. As the shadows tightened their hold, a piercing scream echoed through the night, but it came from within me. I searched frantically for Lyra, my heart pounding like a desperate drum in the oppressive silence that followed her absence. The world seemed to slow, and it felt as if time itself had bent to witness the horror unfolding within our circle. "Kyles!" I cried, my voice frantic as I scanned the dark, wild eyes of my companions. But his expression had gone blank, his mind consumed by the yank of dread that the shadows held over us. The boy stood rooted near him, his face pale, eyes wide with dawning realization. "We need to move, this doesn't feel right," he hissed, though the darkness clawed at him too, as if each syllable he spoke was a spark that could die with a single breath. "Lyra!" I shouted again, my heart constricting as the absence of her grasp anchored me to nothingness. I moved forward, seeking her silhouette against the rising tide of shadow, but in that instant I felt the pull of the keeper's voice, wrapping around us with coil and constriction. "Speak your stories," echoed through the air, sharp and raw. The shadows shifted upon hearing the command, swirling like an inky fog just at the periphery of our gathering. I pressed my lips together, wrestling with the suffocating terror that constricted my throat. But the urgency in my heart demanded more than silence. "Lyra," I whispered, desperation threading through me. "We can't forget her." A flicker of hope sparked somewhere deep within. My memories danced before me, images overlapping. Her laughter, the trials we had faced together, the warmth of her smile before the darkness had claimed it. If I could hold onto those luminous threads, perhaps I could weave them into a path back to her. That I closed my eyes, forcing the encroaching shadows from my mind, and began to speak. When I was a child, I used to build forts in the backyard. I would imagine they were sanctuaries against any evil. I'd invite Lyra to join me, and we'd talk for hours about the heroes and our stories, how brave they had to be to face their fears. I felt a ripple in the darkness, like a hesitant tremor, and I pressed on, hoping my words could become a lifeline. The memories poured forth in a single relentless tide. I remember the day she took my hand and led me into the woods to find the hidden stream. We made promises that we'd never leave each other behind. How could I forget? Each promise felt like true magic. A hush enveloped the circle, the shadows wavering as if they too were listening. The tension in the air softened, and I opened my eyes just in time to see Kyles take a tentative step forward, the flicker of his old self peeking through his fear-riddled expression. "I can remember more, too," he stammered. "The first time I failed, I was 10, and I thought I could climb the old oak. I fell." A new wave of vulnerability rolled through the darkness as more joined in. Mara took a deep breath and spoke. "And I remember the way in that moment, something shifted. The shadows recoiled, as if they were resisting a force beyond them. I could sense Ida hesitance in the consuming darkness as our shared narratives began to forge new light. The memories we weaved were powerful relics that somehow released a warmth, like tendrils of sunlight breaking through storm clouds. But before I could savor the moment, the shadows surged again, fierce as a whirlwind. They twisted and writhed, and I felt the ground tremble beneath us. The keeper's voice rang out, sharper than before. "You tread upon forbidden ground. Your truth is a weapon, but it can also harm when wielded wrong. Choose wisely, for the shadows know your deepest fears. They crave what you seek to bury." A gust of wind swept through, swirling leaves and whispers, and I saw a glimpse of Lyra in the distance, her face locked in a struggle against the weight of shadows that wrapped around her like chains. My heart screamed at the sight. "Lyra!" I choked, but then silence descended, heavy and profound. The boy, with an intensity in his eyes, turned to me with despair and urgency. "We have to finish what we started. The stories must reach her, but if we're to save her, every one of us must lay bare our truths. Only then can we break the cycle." A fresh surge of determination coiled in my chest, warming the chill that had taken root. I drew a deep breath, intentions set within my heart, willing my voice to carry our stories like beacons into the dark. Together, we speak. Together, we illuminate. But just then, a slow rumble permeated the air, rushing towards us as shadows closed in around the circle. The boy's eyes widened as panic etched across his face. "It's coming. It senses our Kurugite won't let us break free." The shadows shifted violently, becoming a vortex of despair, and as I felt the last vestiges of light begin to seep away, I thought of Lyra, not merely the girl who had shared laughter and light with me, but the embodiment of every story I had ever cherished. I steadied myself, but then, out of the corners of my vision, something flickered, a shape emerging from the dark. A figure wrapped in shadows, coming forth with a resonance that unsettled every part of me. And as the fatigue washed over me in an overwhelming tide, that figure spoke a naming name. "Your journey does not end in defiance. It begins with truth." The chilling reverberation dripped into the silence, leaving me teetering on the edge of both fear and the vast unknown. I gasped as recognition surged within me, a revelation that cracked open the cocoon of my spirit. But as understanding blossomed, so too did the shadows hunger, hungry to consume this newly unearthed truth. And with it lay a haunting question. What price would I pay to save not only myself, but Lyra as well? As the darkness writhed around us, the figure-me name echoing in its haunting, ethereal voice became clearer. I realized it was none other than the Keeper, my heart racing at the weight of their presence. You stand at a crossroad, they said, eyes shimmering with ancient knowledge, but your journey lies in the choices you make. To break the chains of the past, you must wield your truths not as weapons, but as shields that in that moment, the tension heightened, the shadows trembling as if drawn back by the light of our collective resolve. I felt a rush of clarity, the fog of fear lifting slightly. We were not bound to succumb to the darkness. We had the power to reshape our stories anew. Remember the tales you've shared. I shouted, my voice firm against the growing storm of shadows. Remember the love, the laughter, the dreams that once united us. Those stories are our strengths, not weaknesses. They are what gives us roots. They are not the chains we fear. They're the very ground for us to rise. With each word, I sensed flashes of those miraculous moments binding together a forest of memories intertwined with our sorrows. The villagers, emboldened by my words, began to reclaim their voices, layering our shared experiences over and over until they flooded the darkness itself. Kyle stepped forward, recalling his brother's laugh and the guilt of survival, while Mara shared the warmth of her mother's embrace, sewing together glimpses of joy even amidst their losses. A chorus of truth rose, melding into a singular force that pushed back the shadows, revealing flashes of light. Lyra, I cried again, desperation palpable in my voice, unwilling to give in. You taught me what it means to stand tall, to lean into our power. Come forth, breathe with us. In that frantic bid, the fears dancing within me rushed forth like wild stallions released from a pen. Stand tall, I cried, turning to face the others, the weight of that truth coiling inside me. We refused to let fear dictate our futures any longer. The shadows threatened to drown us, but we wield the stories of strength that will not break. In the swirl of voices and memories, I felt momentum building, a resurrection of hope that clung to the spirits of the forgotten, all rallying beneath the very fabric of our identities. I glimpsed fragments of Lyra flickering in and out of the shadows, her fierce spirit a guiding light, reminding me of the strength buried deep within our collective hearts. Together, I shouted again, catalyzing the surge building among us. We are the architects of our realities, our futures intertwined. Not for the shadows to claim us, but for hope to rise. As these words cascaded into the air, I felt the Keeper those chains of fear and loss start to loosen their grip. It was as if the threads of darkness began to unravel under the weight of our shared humanity, illuminating the distrust that bound us. With the community encircling me, I reached for Lyra in the void, the love we had forged acting as both beacon and anchor. Take one step. Take it with me. I called into the abyss. Let love be our compass. Our stories bear witness to the truth. Light will cut through this darkness. Just as despair threatened to engulf me completely, the very shadows blocking my vision shuddered, compelled by our unstoppable determination. A pulse, the echo of our collective truths rippled through them, and I felt it, a crack of light that ignited through the gloom, illuminating not only our faces, but the passageways to one another's souls. And then, just like that, I saw her. Lyra's silhouette flickered against the inky backdrop, her eyes locked onto mine with fierce determination, spirits entwined in recognition. You brought me back, she whispered, stepping forward through the shadows that had sought to consume her. She reached for me, and in that communal grasp, a warmth flooded the space between us, casting out the encroaching darkness and igniting the roots of unity. We are not lost, she declared, her voice rising over the crescendo of light. We are warriors born from our struggles, and united, we scatter the remnants of what seeks to bind us. As she spoke, the shadows recoiled, their transformation morphing into a tapestry of swirling colors, memories erupting under the pull of our refusal to cower. Each person present began to step into the light, binding our stories together, drawing strength while the shadows melted back into echoes of the past. The darkness dropped its grip, unable to hold the weight of our courage. Together, we moved in a single wave of purposea, a luminous surge reuniting our spirits against the chaos spiraling around us. As the shadows dissipated, tremors rippling through the air, we became one radiant force, bridging the chasm of pain and fear through a collective embrace. Our hearts beat with an unyielding rhythm, pulsing like the drum of hope, a reminder that we had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. We stood united, tightly woven in our truths, liberated from the shackles of history while clutching tight the roots of our shared identities. Light refracted through every shadow, illuminating cracks carved by our choices. The Keeper gazed at us, their features softening, acknowledging the bonds that had formed through our narratives and inherent power that belonged to each of us. You have chosen truth over darkness. You have chosen freedom above fear. Your journey isn't in erasing the past, but in transforming it into hope for tomorrow. As the air shimmered with newfound clarity and possibility, I realized that I had laid bare every fragment of my heart. We had forged a path to one another, unraveling layers of despair encased within our fears, not merely surviving, but thriving through the stories we shared. And as the last vestiges of shadows dissolved, leaving traces of light beneath our feet, I felt an overwhelming sense of belonging wrap around us like a promised embracia validation of our resilience. Lyra turned to me, her face radiant. The heart of our village blooms brighter than ever, forged from truths shared and embraced. Let's carry this light forward into the world. I smiled, the culmination of our journey unfurling into something beautiful, surrounded by a family reborn, scars shining as badges of honor. I finally understood. The past could remain a part of us, no longer a chain, but an enduring tapestry, a legacy of strength, compassion, and unity, woven in love and remembrance. As we took each other's hands, the bright horizon awaited us, beckoning a future that sparkled with endless possibilities. My heart surged, beating in rhythm with hope, as I exhaled those final words that captured the essence of our triumph. In truth, we rise together,